Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to HemingwayLand.com, your source for quality, affordable land in the state of Colorado. New property going live on the website this week, guys. This one's out there in the Rio Cucharas subdivision, situated just north of Lathrop State Park in Huerfano County, Colorado. This is now roughly the sixth property that we have listed in this approximate region in the last couple of weeks. It's an area that sells really well. Our buyers really like it. We really like it for the reasons you can see here in the headline. Pre-stake lot with power close to the lakes out there. The information we can't fit in the headline, however, is that this is a property with no HOA, no annual dues, and very, very light covenants and restrictions if they are being enforced or still in existence at all. All that being said, there's a lot of good stuff to go over here with this property. I will caution you, however, if you have watched any one of my other Rio Cucharas videos, I am largely going to repeat myself from top to bottom in this video. So it's going to be a little redundant if you have tuned in before. If you haven't, however, oh my God, prepare to be blown away with knowledge. Anyway, here we go, guys. This is reference number HFCO-2788. As I have noted already, this is in Huerfano County, Colorado. That's in the south central portion of the state, in the Rio Cucharas subdivision, specifically Phase 1. I'll get back to the importance of that a little later. And this is a scooch under 5 acres, 4.61 to be exact. And as you saw up top, this is priced at $18,000. Let's do as we always do, bring this up on a map. We got 5 GPS coordinates down here, 4 corner points, and a center. Clicking any one of them will, in a new window, open Google Maps. So first I'd like to start by just sort of situating you guys with the basic geography here. This, you probably can't see it because there's so much green on the map, but this square thing I am outlining is the state of Colorado. Subject property, of course, is down here where the pin is in the south central portion of the state. I like to point out, just for reference, that Denver is roughly about 2.5 hours north of the subject property, and of course that's pretty easy getting back and forth there because the subject property is right by the I-25, which of course crisscrosses the state north to south and takes you south into nearby Taos, as well as into New Mexico itself. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the point is if we right-click and measure distance, you will see Google backs me up in that 2.5-hour drive time, roughly, approximately. Of course, with that fact, it's highway, you're probably doing about 75, 80 miles an hour, so 2.5 hours is a reasonable expectation. Colorado Springs, another major town in the state, another popular town, is, of course, up here about 1.5 hours north of the subject property, and Pueblo, about 1 hour north of the subject property. As I'm fond of pointing out in these videos, there are, of course, a bajillion things to do in the state of Colorado. It's not a state with only 3 cities. I am, however, just pointing out the nearest sort of big major cities, what you're, relatively within a few hours of, etc. But obviously there's a lot to see and do out here. Now, it should be noted when we're talking about towns, the nearest town to the subject property is Walsenburg. This is a town of roughly about 6,000 people. And conveniently, guys, we have photos from the town of Walsenburg in the photo gallery on this listing page. So this gives you a sense of what your nearest small town is. Where you're probably going to be spending some of your time, being as they've got stores out here, they've got cafes, shops, grocery stores, groceries and supplies, basically. This is where you're going to be doing your grocery and supply runs. It should be noted the nearest Walmart is not in Walsenburg, is in Trinidad, Colorado, which is roughly about 40 miles south of the subject property, out by the Trinidad Lake. That being said, grocery supplies, medical facilities, churches, schools, so on and so forth can be found in nearby Walsenburg. You'll notice earlier in the gallery we had a photo of the lumber store that is out there. My suspicion is if you're buying this property, you're going to build on it, you're probably going to be making a trip or two over to that store. We will come back to this in just a moment. Just west of Walsenburg, just down the road here on the 160, is Lathrop State Park. Lathrop, of course, is home to not one, nay, two major lakes out here, the Horseshoe Lake and the Martin Lake, which we got a sneak preview of here in the gallery. This, of course, is a map that we boosted from the state park website. We got another one right here. But the point is you can look at this, you can look at the grid that's on this, and you can see what exactly is available to you out here. Obviously, if you've got lakes, you could go boating, you could go fishing, you could go jet skiing, you could take your boat out there, you can rent a boat out there. But we also like to point out that they have a lot of camping areas, group camping, tent camping, picnic areas, so on and so forth. Additionally, laundry. You could do your laundry out there. Hunting area, bird watching, and there is an RV campsite area up here in this part. There's probably a second one that I'm not seeing, but there's one up here. So an RV-friendly region, etc. And, of course, a lot to do out there. And as we now scroll through the photos of the lake out here, the gorgeous, gorgeous lake and the surrounding mountain region, I am going to rattle off a list of fish that are that find a home here in this lake that people love to fish for, and I'm going to pretend like I know something about fish while I do this. So, oh my God, guys, rainbow trout. There's so many rainbow trout out here. Walleye, catfish, bluegill, tiger muskie, and of course the deceptively spelled the crappie. Anyway, guys, photographer was out here in the month of February, which is why it looks a little cold, looks a little barren, looks a little deserted. Between the cold and COVID, there were not a lot of people at the lake this day, but as you can imagine, it's a happening spot when it is sunny, when it is warm in the spring and summer months. We will return to that in just a moment. Anyway, the subject property, look at this. It's like 10 feet away from the lake. Not really, but you get my point. Very close here, just right off the 160, taking this road up to this road over to here. The subject property sits right here off of La Deora Boulevard. Now, of course, when we zoom in on map view, you can't get a sense of the exact size, shape, location of the property. So I'm going to direct your attention once again to the gallery where we have this helpful sort of footprint of the property. As you can see, it's an oddly shaped lot. It's not a mere square or a rectangle. It's kind of an oddly shaped lot. And just so you know, we're not making that up. We got a plat map right here at a different angle, but you get the point. This is the property itself, lot 221, right out here off of the aforementioned La Deora Boulevard. You guys, of course, can explore that one on your own time. I, however, will take you now back to the map. I wanted to show you guys that right here in satellite view, you get a sense of a couple things that are important with this property. Number one, if we zoom in here on La Deora, you can see that there is power running along this road right here and right here. Now, this easement stops a little bit shy of where the subject property, what I'm going to call the driveway. Let me go back to this. This thing right here, the arm, the panhandle, the driveway of the property begins. Nonetheless, obviously very close to the property boundary. Additionally, you've got a home on one of the neighboring lots right here, which if you zoom in on the map, you can see is being serviced by power as well. 1 power, 2 power, 3 power, etc. Point being, should not be difficult to get power extended the whatever, 50 feet that you need to get it out to whatever you decide to build or park on this land. Now, with all that said, guys, let's go to the photo gallery. As always, with all of our listings, we've got, there we go. We've got photos taken from the property itself. The first thing that jumps out at us here, as you can see, is that La Deora is a very well-maintained road. You're going to be able to navigate this in any vehicle that you have, whether you drive a big, giant truck or a tiny, tiny Prius. I believe the roads out here are county-maintained, so well-maintained throughout the year. Additionally, this, of course, is a photo of the nearby utility easement that exists very close to the lot line. And this is the aforementioned house that is on the neighboring property. Now, by the way, just to point out to you, this is a pretty nice looking house. Okay, it looks like somebody put some time, some effort, and some money into this. Looks like they're living there. This doesn't look like a shack in the middle of nowhere with like 12 barking dogs and 12 rabid barking dogs and cars strewn about the lot that haven't been driven since the 70s. This looks like a pretty respectable home site. So you should anticipate that that's probably what a lot of this region is like, what a lot of the neighbors are like out here. And it's probably a pretty, nice region to live in. Anyway, but also, of course, in the photo, you can see the aforementioned utilities that are out here on the property. For the record, guys, the San Isabella Electric Company is the power company that services this region and is the entity, of course, that you would speak to about getting power out to the subject property. And always a good idea to talk to them in advance, find out, essentially answer your questions about costs, about practicality, about logistics in getting that getting the cables extended out to the property. We, of course, have their contact information on the listing page here. I will get to that in just a moment, however. Do want to point out, as you're looking at this lot, this is a nice, flat, buildable piece of land. We always like to list properties like this. There are some hilly properties, we will call them hilly properties, properties with a slope, properties with an incline, which have their benefits. Of course, you've usually got some nice views from those, but it's usually a fight to get something built on the land. You got to do a little extra work. With these properties like this, of course, you could just show up and, park the camper, pitch a tent, so on and so forth, and begin the construction. Usually not much landscaping that needs to be done out here on these lots. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. As we go through this, of course, you can see in almost all these photos the nearby Spanish peaks, the Sangre De Cristos, that are off in the distance. When our photographer was out there, there was some snow in the higher elevations. So if we go down to the telephoto shots here of the nearby mountains, hang on, guys, right here, boom, you can see the sights, of course, that you'll be waking up to every day. Just, really gorgeous. Obviously, it's southern Colorado. Throw a rock, you're going to hit a mountain. But some really picturesque scenery out here in this region. Quick thing I want to point out to you guys, we've got it here labeled in the photo gallery, property boundary markers. This property is staked. A lot of properties in this subdivision and the neighboring subdivisions do actually have their boundary markers still in place. Here's one. Here's 2. Here's a third one that's seen some better days. But the point is they are out there. And we'd like to point this out to you guys because, of course, when these things exist, when these things are in place, it means that you don't have to, spring for $1,000 or $2,000 survey to get somebody out there and draw a glorified square on a map. Obviously, this one is not a square. That's where my square rectangle joke doesn't quite work, but you get the point. Point is that you don't have to spend money on the survey because the property has already been marked. Anyway, more of the mountains right here, et cetera, et cetera. Finally, guys, down here in the gallery, I just want to point out to you, we've got the drone shots down here at the bottom of the page. And these are helpful, of course, because they give you a sense of the property, the terrain, the surroundings, et cetera. But, of course, we've also got the outline of the property. Depending on how closely or how far a photographer was from the lot at the time, sometimes the outline fits within the entirety of the image, sometimes it does not. Whatever the case, you can see exactly how this thing is located pretty close to these nearby utilities over here. And of course, as we go through this, you will see some of these we got a little luckier with the framing. Anyway, some of the aforementioned gorgeous, majestic mountain peaks off to the side there. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, finally, guys, I'll let you peruse that on your own. Down here at the bottom of the page, we're going to have a drone video set up. Which, of course, will give you an even better sense of not only the property, but also the nearby Lathrop State Park, the lakes out there, etc. Anyway, guys, with all that said, a couple things I want to point out to you at the top of the page here in our property-specific notes. First off, this is a link right here to the San Isabel Electric Company's website. If you click on this, it's going to take you, of course, to their website, which I was mentioning earlier. If you do have questions about logistics, cost, viability of even getting power to the lot line, which should be pretty easy, these are obviously excellent people to talk to. They have an office in nearby Walsenburg. They service a lot of this region. And probably if you call them up and say, hey, I'm buying some land in Rio Cucharas, what can you tell me? How hard is this? I've got power basically at the lot line. They should be able to speak to you about it pretty informed. If not, sometimes when you talk to these utility companies, they will say something like, what's the parcel number? If you need parcel numbers, guys, they're up here. If you need legal descriptions, sometimes they'll ask for that, not always, but that information, of course, is provided in the table up here. Anyway, that's point number 1 that I want to mention. Point number 2, let's talk about this no HOA, no property owners association. So Rio Cucharas breaks down into 3 units, 3 phases. You'll recall at the start of the video, I said this is phase 1. So in these 3 units, 3 phases, whatever. Phase 1, phase 2, they have no HOA, they have no property owners association, they have no annual dues. If you start Googling to fact check me on this, what you might encounter is a website that says, hey, we're the Rio Cucharas Homeowners Association and we have dues. That does not pertain to units 1 and 2. That only pertains to unit 3, which we point out here. Point being, guys, you won't have any additional costs with the land besides the annual taxes, which $36 a year, not too shabby. Anyway, aside from that, I do want to point out, guys, the property has some covenants and restrictions that were created when the land was first subdivided. If you click this link, it's going to bring up this document right here. So here's the thing. Covenants and restrictions. It's one of these things that are created with the land, and there's usually some intent of there's going to be a homeowners association. There's going to be some governing body out there to enforce this sort of thing. When that governing body never materializes, when you go decades without anyone enforcing these things, usually they become fairly non-existent, or at the very least, nobody cares, nobody knows about them, nobody's enforcing them. Now, of course, if you do buy the property, you should be aware of these things. That's why we've linked them. But if you read through these, you're going to find that these are all fairly logical, reasonable, good neighbor covenants, just about don't mine on your property, how you dispose of trash, so on and so forth. They make mention of an architectural control committee, which is no longer in existence if it ever was. But again, if you read through these, I think you'll find these are all pretty reasonable. There's nothing here like, your tool shed has to be so many square feet or something, some nonsense like that. Anyway, so that's another thing we want to familiarize you with. Additionally, guys, down here, we always get questions about RV usage. We always get questions about tiny homes. The covenants, the restrictions, the non-existent HOA, of course, have nothing in writing about what you can and cannot do with RVs. We do, however, want to point out that the Huerfano County Zoning Ordinance, excerpt here, if you click this, it's going to bring this thing up, will show you that RVs are acceptable for 30 days at a time in these regions. Of course, keep in mind, guys, if you decide to build out here and you get a building permit, any reasonable county government is going to expect that you need some sort of secondary home site to live in while you're building the primary, and that typically takes the form of an RV, particularly in rural areas like this. So, of course, if you're going to build on the lot and it takes you 12 months to do that, you get a building permit, you're good to live out of the camper for 12 months, okay? Additionally, guys, the the land use guidelines out there also stipulate a minimum square footage, at least of 600 square feet. So for those of you who like to ask about tiny homes, I have no idea if you consider 600 too big, too small, whatever, but 600 is the number. So just an FYI. Finally, guys, one thing I want to point out to you, we've got a website down here. People always call, they ask these questions about our New Mexico properties. What's the water table depth? How far do I have to drill? What's that going to cost me? And I know nothing about those things, and they're very difficult to research in New Mexico. The state engineer's website is not incredibly intuitive, and it doesn't really ballpark numbers for you. So I don't like to quote numbers to buyers. I don't like to say, oh, definitely no more than, 200 feet to drill, definitely no more, cost than this. So in all our New Mexico videos, I'm always fond of saying, guys, if you're going to buy a property, you're going to drill a well, talk to well drillers in the region. That remains true for the Colorado property. It remains true for any property you're going to buy from us, from anyone else. That being said, Colorado has a better website than New Mexico does for this sort of thing. And if you click on that link right there, it's going to take you to this website, and I'm just going to show you how this works. You can actually find out what the local wells, what depth they are drilled to. So if you click on that thing I just showed you right there, it's going to bring up the map of Colorado. This oddly shaped county down here is Huerfano, and if we zoom in on that, I think I zoomed too fast and too far. Here's Lathrop State Park, and of course just a little bit north of that is the region where this property is, La Deora Boulevard right over here. So if you come up here and just click on well application and final permit, you're going to see some green dots on the map. It's going to show you the nearest wells. The property sits right here. This would be the well for that home site that's right next door. If we look at that one, you'll see it's got a well depth of 527 feet. If you look at the structure that's across the street, basically, this one is 650. This one over here, 600. I don't see ones that are, super close. That would be a good gauge of that. This one up here is 418. Point being, from these three, we can average it. We could say, okay, I should anticipate maybe, drilling 600 feet. Call some well drillers out there. Find out what 600 feet of drilling cost you. Is that $10 a foot? Is it $20 a foot? So on and so forth. But point being, guys, you can at least get a better sense using the Colorado website than you can in New Mexico about water table depth, and then you can kind of extrapolate costs from that. So we always like to point that out to you guys. I'd encourage you to kind of monkey around with the site. It's kind of a fun site to use. You can actually learn a lot about this. And additionally, from that website, we've boosted, guys, a PDF that they have, Beginner's Guide to Well Permits. Click this link. It's going to bring up this document right here, which will actually kind of teach you how all this works, getting water rights, getting well permits in the state of Colorado. Of course, their Division of Water Resources is the government entity that handles this sort of thing. And you can learn a lot about that process just by reading through this 21-page document. I know people love reading things, so there you go. Anyway, guys, if this is a property that interests you, we should be aware that we closed on this through Daughter Abstracts. This is a property that we did get title insurance with. That means we're going to be providing a warranty deed. Additionally, because of the price point, we're going to encourage you to close to the title company as well. The way that process works is you come up here, you click the Buy Now button. It's going to take you to this secure checkout page where we ask you for, guys, let me stress, a non-refundable earnest money deposit of $500. What this is, guys, if you're buying an $18,000 property, we ask for $500 down to kind of kick off the process, show us that you are serious. We do not anticipate, nor would we ask for $18,000 via a credit card. If you want to do it, we're not going to argue with you. But again, in this price range, we recommend let's close through a title company. And of course, the way that process works is you put down the $500, you enter some important information that we need. Click the box is the word I was looking for. Agree to the terms of service, and on the next page, you can enter your credit or debit card information to make that non-refundable $500 earnest money deposit. To be clear, guys, the way that this process works, we got a page on our website. It's called How It Works Buying From Us. If you come up here and you look at what the title escrow process is, basically it's you put down the earnest money deposit, we draft a sale purchase agreement, you sign it, we submit it to title, and they do the rest. And if you're not, we have a lot of buyers who are not familiar with what the title escrow process is, but essentially there are some benefits here. To make it simple, there are some benefits here for you, the buyer. Number one, of course, is that there's a third-party intermediary handling your money as well as the drawing up of the conveyance documents, so you're not giving it directly to us. Additionally, it is not released to us until such time as the property has been deeded into your name. So that's the first advantage. Of course, the second advantage is that you're going to get title insurance. And whether you understand what that means or not, the importance of that, the significance, is that if you intend to build on this property and you anticipate you're going to take out a loan to build the house, to drill the well, to whatever, you're most likely going to go to a bank, and a bank is not going to lend on a property that does not have title insurance. So if you want to see what one of our sale purchase agreements looks like, the thing we're going to ask you to sign after you put down the money, just click this link right here, and it will bring up a generic version of one of our standard contracts. As you can see, this one is pretty self-explanatory, pretty easy. One page for signatures. If you got a lawyer in the family and you want him to read it, be our guest. That being said, once you put down the money, we're going to ask you to sign that. Title will not do anything until they have a signed contract from buyer and seller demonstrating intent. And, of course, we will not draft that contract until we have the $500, which is like why we like to present it here on the website so you can acquaint yourself with it in advance. Anyway, guys, with all that said, really like these properties. Our buyers really like these properties. As noted, you got a lot you're not going to have to get a survey on. You got power basically at the lot line, no HOAs, no annual dues, so on and so forth. Lots to like about this land, as we have discovered with some previous buyers. So if you're interested in this one, guys, I would encourage